The moment I heard my daughter Sophia whisper, "I wish she'd just die already," to her husband Marcus at her 38th birthday dinner, something inside me shattered like the crystal wine glass I was holding behind the kitchen door, listening to every poisonous word that followed. I had arrived early to help set up for her party, carrying the $3,000 designer handbag she'd been eyeing for months, wrapped in gold paper with a bow that cost more than most people's groceries. But instead of walking into the dining room where she sat with Marcus and her best friend Natalie, I froze when I heard my name spoken with such venom it made my blood turn to ice water in my veins. "Your mother is coming again?" Natalie asked, and I could hear the eye roll in her voice even from where I stood hidden in the shadows of my daughter's marble-floored kitchen that I had paid for when they bought this house. "Unfortunately," Sophia sighed, and the exhaustion in her voice cut deeper than any knife could have. "Every year it's the same performance. She shows up with some expensive gift trying to buy my love, stays too long, makes everything about her declining health or her loneliness, and I have to pretend I'm grateful, when really I just want one birthday without the guilt trips and the passive-aggressive comments about how I never visit." Marcus laughed, and said, "Maybe she'll take the hint when she realizes we changed the locks last month and forgot to give her a key." My hand trembled as I set the wine glass down silently on the counter, my 71-year-old fingers struggling not to make a sound that would reveal my presence. Before I dive in deeper, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe because it helps me keep sharing more. "You know what I really want for my birthday?" Sophia continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that I had to strain to hear. "I want to never have to deal with her again. I want her gone, completely out of our lives. No more monthly checks we have to cash while pretending we're grateful. No more Sunday dinners where she criticizes how I raise Emma and Oliver. No more of her showing up at school events, embarrassing us with her outdated clothes and her stories about the good old days." The room fell silent for a moment, and I held my breath, praying she would take it back, laugh it off as a joke, but instead, Natalie said, "Why don't you just tell her?" And Sophia's response froze the blood in my veins. "Because she's leaving everything to us in her will, the house in Vermont, the investment accounts, the life insurance, probably close to $2 million all told. And if I tell her how I really feel, she might change everything. So I need her to die thinking I loved her. It's just a few more years of pretending. She's already 71 with high blood pressure and diabetes. How much longer can it really be?" I pressed my hand against my mouth to stifle the sob that threatened to escape, feeling my knees weaken as I gripped the marble countertop I had selected with Sophia 5 years ago when I gifted them the down payment for this house. "Besides," Marcus added, "Emma and Oliver's college funds aren't going to fill themselves, and with the way tuition is going, we need every penny of that inheritance. Your mother might be annoying, but her money definitely isn't." They all laughed, a harsh, cruel sound that echoed through the house I had helped them buy. And I knew in that moment that everything I had believed about my relationship with my daughter was a carefully constructed lie designed to keep the money flowing. The gift in my hands suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. This handbag that cost me 3 months of scrimping on groceries and skipping my own medications to afford. All for a daughter who was counting down the days until I died. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made over the years, working double shifts as a pediatric nurse until my back gave out, saving every penny so Sophia could go to Columbia without student loans, paying for her wedding to Marcus even though I knew he looked at me like I was an ATM machine in orthopedic shoes, funding their first house down payment by cashing out my 401k early and taking the tax penalty, all because I believed that's what a good mother does for her only child. The irony was suffocating. Here I was, standing in the kitchen I had paid for, listening to my daughter wish me dead so she could inherit the money I had spent a lifetime accumulating for her benefit. Money I had already been slowly giving her anyway through monthly checks, emergency bailouts, and expensive gifts she apparently despised. I heard chairs scraping as they stood up, probably heading to the kitchen to get more wine, and I quickly slipped out the back door, moving with a silence I didn't know I possessed, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might actually grant Sophia her birthday wish right there in her backyard. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the golden gift bag, trying to decide what to do with the knowledge that my daughter, my only child, the person I had devoted my entire existence to, wanted me dead for money. Finally, I drove home to my small apartment, the one I had downsized to after selling the family home to help Sophia and Marcus when he lost his job 3 years ago. And I did something I had never done before in my entire life as a mother. I made a plan that didn't involve sacrificing myself for my daughter's happiness. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold between my hands, staring at the blank notepad in front of me while Sophia's words played on repeat in my mind like a broken record. I want her gone, completely out of our lives. And each repetition carved away another piece of the mother I had been for 38 years. The pen felt foreign in my fingers as I began to write, not a birthday card filled with love and wishes for happiness, but a letter that would change everything, a letter that would give my daughter exactly what she wanted for her birthday, just not in the way she expected. Dear Sophia, I wrote, my handwriting steadier than my emotions. By the time you read this, I will have given you the birthday gift you truly wanted, the one you whispered about to Marcus and Natalie when you thought I couldn't hear. The gift of my absence from your life, permanently and completely. I paused, remembering how she used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, her little arms wrapped around my neck, whispering, "I love you, Mommy," like it was the most important secret in the world. But that little girl was gone, replaced by a woman who saw me as nothing more than an inconvenient bank account with a pulse. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Harrison Blackwood, a man who had handled my affairs since my husband died 15 years ago, and made an appointment for that afternoon. "Ruth," he said when I walked into his office, using my first name with the familiarity of someone who had seen me through my darkest days. "You look troubled. Is everything all right?" I sat down across from his mahogany desk and told him everything, watching his expression shift from professional concern to genuine shock as I recounted what I had overheard at Sophia's birthday dinner preparation. "I need to change my will," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "And I need to do it today, before I lose my nerve or convince myself I misheard what I know I heard clearly." Harrison leaned back in his leather chair, studying me with eyes that had seen too many family betrayals to be truly surprised anymore. "Are you certain about this, Ruth? Because once we make these changes, especially given the circumstances, it will be very difficult for Sophia to contest them." "That's exactly what I want," I replied, pulling out the list I had made at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. "I want to leave the Vermont house to the Children's Hospital where I worked for 30 years. They can use it as a retreat for families with sick children who need a place to stay. The Vermont house, our family's summer home worth $800,000, where Sophia had learned to swim, where we had celebrated 20 Christmases, where her father had proposed to me under the maple tree that still stood in the front yard, would no longer be her inheritance, but would instead serve children who actually needed help. The investment accounts, all $400,000, I want those to go to my neighbor Patricia's grandson, Timothy, who's working 3 jobs to put himself through medical school because his family can't afford to help him. A young man who brings me groceries every week and refuses to take money for it, who sits with me during my doctor's appointments when I'm scared. who treats me like the grandmother he never had." Harrison nodded, taking notes as I systematically dismantled the inheritance Sophia had been counting down my death to receive. "The life insurance policy. The one worth $500,000. I want the beneficiary changed to the Alzheimer's Research Foundation in memory of my mother, who died not remembering any of our faces, including Sophia's, though Sophia couldn't be bothered to visit her even once in the nursing home." Each decision felt like cutting a rope that had been slowly strangling me, and with every cut, I could breathe a little easier. "What about your personal belongings, your jewelry, the family photos?" Harrison asked, and I almost laughed at the thought of Sophia wanting any of those things that held no monetary value. "My engagement ring and wedding band can go to Emma when she turns 21, along with a letter explaining why her mother won't be receiving them. The rest can be sold and donated to the women's shelter downtown. As for the photos, Sophia made it clear she doesn't want memories of me, so they can go to whoever wants them." Harrison set down his pen and looked at me with something that might have been admiration or pity. I couldn't tell which. "And what about the monthly support you've been providing? The checks for $2,000 you send every month?" "Stop them immediately," I said, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. If I'm dead to her, then the dead don't write checks. They don't pay for private school tuition. They don't cover mortgage payments when things get tight. The dead are gone. And that's what she wanted. We spent 3 hours documenting everything, making sure every detail was legally airtight, that there was no way Sophia could claim I was mentally incompetent or unduly influenced, and Harrison even called in his colleague to witness my signature, to testify if needed that I was of completely sound mind when I chose to disinherit my only child. "There's one more thing," I said as we finished, pulling out the letter I had written the night before. "I want this delivered to her on her birthday, not by mail, but by courier. Someone who will confirm she received it, who will watch her face as she reads it." Harrison took the letter, weighing it in his hands like he could feel the decades of pain condensed into those few pages. "Consider it done," he said, and for the first time in 24 hours, I smiled. The morning of Sophia's birthday arrived with a thunderstorm that seemed fitting, the kind of dramatic weather that used to send her running to my room as a child. But now, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the rain streak down the windows while I waited for the courier to deliver my final gift to my daughter. At exactly 10 o'clock, my phone rang, and I saw Harrison's number on the screen. "The letter has been delivered," he said simply. The courier confirmed that Sophia signed for it personally. "And Ruth, I know this isn't my place, but are you all right?" I told him I was better than all right. I was free, though the word tasted strange in my mouth, like speaking a foreign language for the first time. 15 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Sophia, the screen lighting up with her name over and over again. But I didn't answer, couldn't answer, because what was there to say to someone who had already pronounced me dead in her heart? Instead, I walked to my closet and pulled out the suitcase I had packed the night before, the one filled with only the essentials, because when you're starting over at 71, you learn that most of what you thought was essential was just weight holding you down. Patricia knocked on my door at noon, just as we had planned, her face creased with concern but also understanding, because she had heard through the thin walls of our apartment building more than one phone call, where Sophia berated me for not sending money fast enough or for suggesting I might visit for the holidays. "Your taxi is here," she said softly, squeezing my hand with her arthritic fingers that still held more warmth than my daughter's perfectly manicured ones ever had. "Are you sure about this, Ruth?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I replied, handing her the keys to my apartment. "The rent is paid through the end of the year, and everything inside is yours to do with as you please. Donate it, sell it, keep what you want. I won't be needing any of it where I'm going." She hugged me then, This neighbor who had shown me more genuine affection in 5 years than my daughter had in the last decade, and whispered, "You deserve to be happy, Ruth. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The taxi driver helped me with my suitcase, and as we pulled away from the building where I had lived since downsizing to help Sophia, I didn't look back, not once. Because sometimes the only way forward is to stop looking backward. What would you have done if your own daughter wished you dead for money? The flight to Portland was smooth, and I spent it reading a book for the first time in years, without feeling guilty that I should be doing something for Sophia instead, without wondering if she needed money for the kids' activities, or if Marcus had lost another job and they needed help with the mortgage. My younger sister Margaret was waiting at the airport, her face bright with a smile that reached her eyes, a genuine smile that didn't hide calculations about my net worth or countdown to my death. "Ruth!" she called out, waving enthusiastically despite being 68 herself, and when she hugged me, I broke down completely, sobbing into her shoulder while travelers streamed around us, probably thinking we were reuniting after years apart, which, in a way, we were. "I haven't seen you in 3 years," Margaret said, holding me at arm's length to look at me properly. "Sophia always had some emergency when you planned to visit me, didn't she?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat, remembering all the canceled trips, the plane tickets I had eaten the cost of, the times I had chosen Sophia's manufactured crises over my sister's genuine invitations. "Well, she can't stop you now," Margaret said firmly, linking her arm through mine. "Come on, let's go home. I've got your room all ready, the one that overlooks the garden. Remember how you always loved that view when we were kids?" The drive to Margaret's house in the Portland suburbs was quiet, comfortable. The kind of silence that exists between people who don't need to fill every moment with words, unlike the strained conversations with Sophia, where every pause felt like judgment. "I read the letter you sent me?" Margaret said finally as we pulled into her driveway. "The one you wrote about what Sophia said and Ruth. I need you to know something. You did the right thing, cutting her off completely, because what she did wasn't just cruel, it was evil, calculating evil, and you don't owe evil anything, not even when it shares your DNA." That night, as I lay in the guest room that Margaret had decorated with photos from our childhood, pictures of us before I became a mother and lost myself in that role, my phone rang one more time. It was Emma, my granddaughter, and against my better judgment, I answered. "Grandma?" Her 15-year-old voice was confused, hurt. "Mom is crying and won't tell me why. She just keeps saying you abandoned us. But that doesn't sound like you. What's really going on?" My heart cracked at the sound of her voice, this innocent child caught in her mother's web of greed. But I knew I had to be honest, at least partially. "Emma, sweetheart, sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people deeply, and when that happens, the hurt person has to protect themselves, even if it means walking away from people they love." "Did Mom hurt you?" she asked, and the directness of the question took my breath away. "Yes," I said simply. "She did, in a way that can't be fixed with apologies or promises to do better." There was a long pause. Then Emma said something that surprised me. "I heard her talking to Dad about your money last month, about how they were planning to put you in a nursing home as soon as you showed any sign of confusion so they could get power of attorney over your accounts. Is that why you left?" The room spun around me as I processed this new information, this confirmation that my daughter's betrayal went even deeper than I had known. "Emma, I need you to know that I love you and your brother very much, but I can't be part of your mother's life anymore. When you're 18, if you want to have a relationship with me separate from her, I would welcome that. But until then, this has to be goodbye." 3 weeks into my new life with Margaret, I received a certified letter from a law firm I didn't recognize, and my hands shook as I opened it. Expecting Sophia had found some legal way to force me back into her life, but what I read made me sink into Margaret's kitchen chair with shock. "Dear Mrs. Ruth Whitmore," the letter began. "We represent the estate of Mr. Bernard Whitmore, your late husband's estranged brother, who passed away last month in Switzerland. As the only surviving relative with whom he maintained correspondence over the years, you have been named the sole beneficiary of his estate, valued at approximately $3.2 million, including properties in Switzerland and France, investment portfolios, and a substantial art collection." I read the letter 3 times before the words started to make sense, remembering Bernard, my husband's older brother, who had cut ties with the family after a business dispute 40 years ago. Except with me, we had exchanged Christmas cards and occasional letters, and I had never told Sophia about him because my husband had asked me not to, wanting to protect her from the family drama. "Oh my God," Margaret said, reading over my shoulder. "Ruth, this is karma. The universe giving you back everything you gave up for that ungrateful daughter of yours. And the timing, right after you finally stood up for yourself, it's like Bernard was waiting for you to be free." The irony was so thick, I could almost taste it. Here was Sophia, who had been counting down to my death for my $2 million estate, while I had just inherited even more from a relative she didn't even know existed, money she would never see a penny of because of her own greed and cruelty. That afternoon, I called the law firm in Switzerland and spoke to Bernard's attorney, Mr. Moams, Heinrich Richter, who explained that Bernard had been following my life from afar, had known about my struggles with Sophia through the subtext of my letters, and had deliberately waited to finalize his will until recently. "He wanted to make sure the inheritance went only to you, Mrs. Whitmore," Heinrich explained in accented English. "He was very specific that your daughter and her family should have no claim to his estate. He even included a clause that if you had predeceased him and the estate had passed to your daughter, it would instead go entirely to charity," he said, and I quote, "Some people don't deserve inheritances. They only deserve lessons." I flew to Switzerland 2 weeks later to handle the estate matters, and walking through Bernard's mansion in Geneva, I felt like I was in a dream. This beautiful home filled with art and books and sunlight, so different from the cramped apartment I had relegated myself to after giving Sophia everything. In his study, I found a letter addressed to me, dated just a month before his death. "Dear Ruth," it read in his spidery handwriting. "If you're reading this, then you finally inherited what you should have had all along, a life of your own choosing. I've watched from afar as you poured yourself into a daughter who never appreciated you, and it broke my heart. I couldn't intervene while you were still trying to save that relationship. But now that you're free, as I suspect you will be by the time this reaches you, I want you to have everything I've built, not because you need it, but because you deserve it. Live well, travel. Buy yourself beautiful things. Eat at wonderful restaurants, and most importantly, never apologize for choosing yourself. Your daughter chose money over mother. Now let her live with that choice while you live with mine, which is to choose you, the sister-in-law who remembered me when everyone else forgot. With love and admiration, Bernard." Do you think I was too harsh in cutting Sophia off completely? I stood in that study, holding the letter, crying for this man who had seen my worth when my own daughter couldn't, who had planned this incredible gift as a reward for finally standing up for myself. When I returned to Portland, I brought Margaret with me to Switzerland to see the properties, and we spent a week exploring Geneva and the countryside home Bernard had left me. A charming cottage with views of the Alps that took our breath away every morning. "You should move here," Margaret said one evening as we sat on the terrace drinking wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. "Start completely fresh, somewhere Sophia can't find you, where you can be Ruth, not somebody's mother or grandmother, just Ruth." The idea terrified and thrilled me in equal measure, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. What was keeping me in the States except proximity to people who wished me dead for profit? That night, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable 2 months ago. I would move to Switzerland, sell the Portland apartment, and start the life I should have been living all along. I called Harrison to update my will again, this time including Bernard's inheritance, ensuring that every penny would go to charities and individuals who had shown me kindness without expecting anything in return. And I added a special provision. If Sophia contested the will in any way, $100,000 would immediately be donated to a charity supporting elderly people abandoned by their families, in her name. "You've become quite fierce, Ruth," Harrison said with something like pride in his voice. "I think I always was," I replied. "I just forgot for a while, buried it under decades of trying to be the perfect mother to someone who only saw me as a bank account with a pulse." 2 days later, while Margaret and I were planning my move to Switzerland, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man's voice said, "Mrs. Whitmore, this is Marcus. Please don't hang up. I'm not calling for Sophia. I'm calling because I'm leaving her, and I thought you should know what's happening." My blood ran cold as I listened to my soon-to-be ex-son-in-law explain how Sophia had become unhinged after receiving my letter and learning about the will changes. How she had started plotting ways to have me declared mentally incompetent. How she had even researched hiring someone to find me and force me back. "She's lost it, Ruth," Marcus said, and for the first time ever, I heard genuine emotion in his voice. "The greed has consumed her completely. She doesn't care about you. She never did. But now she doesn't even care about the kids. All she talks about is the money, how to get it, how you've stolen her future. I can't let Emma and Oliver grow up thinking this is normal." The conversation that followed changed everything I thought I knew about my family dynamics and set in motion events that would bring Sophia's carefully constructed world crashing down around her. Marcus's revelations came pouring out like water through a broken dam, each detail more shocking than the last, as he explained how Sophia had been planning my demise for years, not just casually wishing for it, but actively strategizing how to hasten it. "She researched your medications, Ruth," he said, his voice heavy with disgust. "She knew that if she stressed you enough during visits, your blood pressure would spike, and she hoped, God forgive me for not stopping her, she hoped it would trigger a heart attack or stroke. That's why she always picked fights when you came over. Why she made everything so tense and miserable." I sat down hard on Margaret's couch, my hand pressed to my chest, where my heart was racing with the knowledge that my own daughter had been literally trying to kill me with stress. "There's more," Marcus continued, and I could hear him taking a shaky breath. "She had me install cameras in your apartment during that visit last year, when she insisted on helping you reorganize. She's been watching you, monitoring your health, looking for signs of decline she could use to get power of attorney. She knows about every doctor's appointment, every medication you take, every visitor you have. The violation of it made me physically ill, knowing that my daughter had been spying on me, watching me in my private moments, probably critiquing every penny I spent on myself instead of her." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because when she got your letter, when she realized you knew what she really thought of you, she went completely insane, Ruth. She started talking about hiring someone to track you down, maybe even hurt Margaret to force you to come back. She said if you won't give her the money willingly, she'll take it by force, and I can't be part of that. I won't be part of that, and I won't let my children be raised by someone capable of that kind of evil." He paused, then added something that chilled me to my core. "She found out about Bernard's inheritance, Ruth. I don't know how, but she knows about the $3.2 million, and she's convinced it belongs to her. She's already spent it in her mind, planned out every penny. And the fact that you have it instead is driving her to do things I never thought she was capable of." I immediately called Harrison and then the police, filing reports about the illegal surveillance and the threats Marcus had reported, creating a paper trail in case Sophia escalated further. The detective who took my statement, a woman named Foster, who looked about Sophia's age, shook her head in disbelief as she documented everything. "I've seen a lot of family disputes over money," she said. "But this level of premeditation, the cameras, the medical research, the psychological torture designed to cause a health crisis. Your daughter isn't just greedy, Mrs. Whitmore, she's dangerous." That night, Margaret and I changed all our plans, accelerating my move to Switzerland and taking additional security precautions that I never thought I'd need protection from my own child. We hired a security company to sweep my apartment for cameras, and they found 6 of them. One in every room, including the bathroom, the violation of it making me vomit when I realized my daughter had been watching me in my most vulnerable moments for over a year. "We need to get you out of the country immediately," Margaret said, booking flights for the next morning. "She's escalating, and who knows what she'll do when she realizes Marcus has left her and talked to you." But before we could leave, Emma called again, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Grandma, Mom's lost it. She's screaming at everyone. She threw Dad out. She says you've ruined our lives. She keeps talking about how she's going to make you pay. I'm scared, Grandma. I've never seen her like this." I wanted to comfort my granddaughter, but I also knew I couldn't get pulled back into Sophia's chaos. "Emma, listen to me carefully. You need to go stay with your father. Take Oliver with you. Your mother is not well right now, and it's not safe for you to be around her when she's like this. She says if we leave, we're betraying her just like you did," Emma sobbed. "She says family is supposed to stick together no matter what, that you owe her everything because she's your daughter." "Emma, sweetheart, nobody owes anyone their own destruction, not even mothers to daughters, especially not that. What your mother wants isn't love, it's ownership, and nobody owns another person, no matter what they've done for them or how they're related." After I hung up, I did something I should have done years ago. I called my therapist, Dr. Sarah Hendricks, who I had stopped seeing because Sophia convinced me therapy was a waste of money that could be better spent on her family. "Ruth," Sarah said when I explained everything that had happened, "what you're describing is a severely narcissistic personality with sociopathic tendencies. Your daughter doesn't see you as a person. She sees you as a resource, and resources don't have feelings or rights in her mind. They only have value." The validation from a professional that I wasn't crazy, that my daughter's behavior was genuinely abnormal and dangerous, gave me the strength to take the next step in protecting myself. I had Heinrich Richter set up a trust in Switzerland that would be completely untouchable by American law, transferring all of Bernard's inheritance into it, ensuring that even if Sophia somehow managed to challenge my will or have me declared incompetent, she would never touch a penny of that money. "It's bulletproof," Heinrich assured me. "Even if she had you declared mentally incompetent retroactively, which is nearly impossible, the Swiss trust laws would protect these assets. They're beyond her reach forever." That night, as Margaret and I finished packing for our early morning flight, my phone rang with Sophia's number, and against every instinct, I answered, needing to hear her voice one last time, needing to know if there was any trace of the daughter I once loved left in the monster she had become. "You think you've won," she said, her voice cold and flat in a way I'd never heard before. "You think you can just walk away with what's mine, but you're wrong, Mother. I'll find you, wherever you go, however long it takes, and I'll get what I deserve, what you owe me for ruining my life by bringing me into this world." "Sophia," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "the only thing I owe you is the truth. You're not entitled to my money, my life, or my death. You're not entitled to anything from me anymore because you killed my love for you with your greed, and that's a loss you'll carry forever. long after the money you wanted is gone." I hung up before she could respond, blocked her number, and felt the last chain binding me to my old life snap and fall away. Because sometimes the greatest gift a mother can give her child is the consequence of their own choices, even when that consequence is losing their mother forever. The Swiss Alps looked like a postcard from the window of my new home, Bernard's cottage that was really more of a small mansion, with its exposed wooden beams and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the mountains like living paintings. And for the first time in decades, I woke up without dread in my stomach, without checking my phone to see what crisis Sophia had manufactured that would require my immediate attention and money. Margaret stayed with me for the first month, helping me settle in and learn the village where everyone seemed to know Bernard had left his estate to his American sister-in-law, treating me with a respect I hadn't felt in years, not the obligatory courtesy given to someone's mother, but genuine regard for me as a person. 3 months into my new life, I was having coffee at the local cafe when my phone rang with a call from Harrison, and his voice was grim as he delivered news that shouldn't have surprised me, but did. "Ruth, Sophia has been arrested," he said without preamble. "She hired someone to break into Margaret's house looking for information about your whereabouts, but Margaret's neighbor saw them and called the police. They caught them in the act, and under interrogation, the person admitted Sophia hired them. She's being charged with conspiracy to commit burglary and stalking." I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands, processing the fact that my daughter had actually crossed the line into criminal behavior in her pursuit of my money. "There's more," Harrison continued. "The investigation uncovered something disturbing. She had taken out a life insurance policy on you 2 years ago without your knowledge, forging your signature. It's worth $5 million with her as the sole beneficiary. That combined with the break-in and Marcus's testimony about her trying to induce a medical crisis has led to additional charges of conspiracy to commit murder." The words hung in the air like poison. My own daughter had been planning my death for years, not just wishing for it, but actively working toward it, and the knowledge that I had been living with a target on my back placed there by the person I gave life to was almost too much to bear. "What should I do?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Nothing," Harrison said firmly. "Let the law handle this. You're safe where you are, and frankly, testifying against her would only put you at risk. Marcus is cooperating fully with the prosecution, providing emails and recorded conversations where Sophia discussed her plans. It's enough to convict without you being involved." That evening, I sat on my terrace watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. From a mother so devoted she would have died for her child, to a woman who had to flee across an ocean to escape that same child's murderous greed. Emma called that night, her voice older than her 16 years. "Grandma, I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us, but I needed you to know that Oliver and I are okay. We're living with Dad full-time now, and we're getting therapy to deal with everything that's happened." "I'm glad you're safe, sweetheart," I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. "That's all I ever wanted for you and your brother." "The police showed us the evidence?" Emma said quietly. "The cameras she put in your apartment, the life insurance policy, the medical research about inducing heart attacks. Grandma, I'm so sorry we were part of her plan. Even unknowingly, she used to have us call you when she knew it would interrupt your doctor's appointments or when you were trying to rest. She said it was to show we loved you, but it was really to stress you out." The manipulation went even deeper than I had imagined, using innocent children as weapons in her sick game. "None of that was your fault, Emma. You were children being directed by your mother. You couldn't have known her real intentions. Dad says she's probably going to prison for a long time." Emma said, and I could hear the conflict in her voice, the struggle between loyalty to her mother and horror at what that mother had done. He says we can write to you if you're okay with it, that maybe when we're older, we could even visit you in Switzerland, but only if you want that. I thought about it for a long moment. These grandchildren who I loved, but who would forever be connected to the daughter who tried to destroy me. When you turn 18, if you still want a relationship with me, we can talk about it. But for now, focus on healing and learning from this. Learn that love isn't about money or inheritance or what someone can do for you. It's about genuine connection and respect. Something your mother never understood. After we hung up, I found myself thinking about the note I had left Sophia on her birthday, the one that had started this avalanche of consequences, and I realized that in trying to give her what she wanted, my absence, I had actually given her what she deserved. The chance to show her true self without the mask of a loving daughter. The news of Sophia's arrest had reached the Swiss village, and my neighbors, who had initially been merely polite, became protective of me. The baker refusing to let me pay for bread. The postman checking on me daily. The entire community circling around me like a fortress of human kindness that my own daughter had never shown. Mrs. Chen, who ran the local tea shop, sat with me one afternoon as I told her the whole story, her weathered hands holding mine as I cried for the daughter I had lost long before I left America. In my culture, she said in her softly accented English, we have a saying that children who eat their parents' hearts will starve on their own cruelty. Your daughter consumed your love without nourishment, and now she has nothing to sustain her but her own greed. 6 months after leaving America, I received a package forwarded by Harrison. Inside was a letter from Sophia, sent from the county jail where she was being held without bail after the judge deemed her a flight risk and a danger to others. Her handwriting was still perfect, controlled, even in her current circumstances. Mother, it began, not Mom or any term of endearment. I hope you're satisfied with what you've done to me. Your vindictive actions have destroyed my life. Cost me my freedom, my children, my home, everything. All because you couldn't handle a few harsh words said in private. Words that any daughter might say about an overbearing mother who won't give her space to breathe. Even now, even facing years in prison, she couldn't admit what she had done, couldn't take responsibility for the cameras, the life insurance policy, the deliberate attempts to cause my death. The letter continued for 3 pages, each sentence dripping with narcissistic rage and self-pity. But not once did she apologize. Not once did she acknowledge the pain she had caused or the betrayal of planning her own mother's death for money. I burned the letter in the fireplace that night, watching the pages curl and blacken, taking with them the last vestiges of maternal obligation I might have felt. Because some relationships are too poisoned to save, and some people are too dangerous to love, even when they're your own child. 1 year to the day after I overheard Sophia wish for my death at her birthday dinner, I stood in a Swiss courthouse providing testimony via video link for her sentencing hearing, my hands steady as I read my victim impact statement to a daughter who still couldn't meet my eyes even through a screen. Your Honor, I began, looking directly at the camera. The woman before you is not the daughter I raised, somewhere along the way. The little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, transformed into a stranger capable of planning her mother's death for financial gain, and while I grieve for that lost child, I cannot and will not forgive the criminal she became. Sophia sat in her orange jumpsuit, thinner than I'd ever seen her, her perfectly styled hair now pulled back in a simple ponytail, but her eyes still held that calculating coldness that had replaced maternal love with murderous greed. The judge, a stern woman named Hernandez, had already heard weeks of testimony, including Marcus's devastating account of Sophia's escalating plans, the testimony of the hired burglar, who admitted Sophia had promised him $50,000 to find me, and the insurance investigator who detailed the fraudulent life insurance policy that would have paid out only if I died within the next 2 years. "Mrs. Whitmore," the judge addressed me, "is there anything else you'd like to add before I pass sentence?" I looked at my daughter one last time, searching for any sign of remorse, any crack in her narcissistic armor, but found only the same contempt she'd shown that night at her birthday dinner. "Only this, Your Honor. I spent 38 years pouring love into a vessel that had no bottom, sacrificing my health, my finances, my entire life for someone who saw me not as a mother, but as an obstacle to wealth. I've learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to stop loving, when to protect yourself from someone who would destroy you without a second thought, even if that someone is your own child." The sentence was 15 years, with possibility of parole in 10, and as the gavel fell, I saw Sophia's face contort with rage, not regret, because even then she believed she was the victim, that I had somehow wronged her by not dying on schedule, by not submitting to her plans for my demise. Marcus sent me an email that night with a photo of Emma and Oliver at their new school, smiling genuinely for the first time in years, free from their mother's toxic influence. "They're in therapy," he wrote, "learning that love isn't transactional, that family isn't about money, that what their mother did wasn't normal or acceptable. They talk about you often, about the grandmother who was brave enough to save herself, and maybe someday, when they're ready, they'd like to know you again, the real you, not the ATM their mother taught them to see." I saved the photo but didn't respond, knowing that some bridges take years to rebuild, if they can be rebuilt at all. That evening, Margaret called with news that made me smile for the first time in days. "Patricia's grandson, Timothy, just got accepted to Johns Hopkins for his residency," she said. "He wanted me to tell you that the scholarship fund you set up in Bernard's name is going to help 12 kids go to medical school this year. Kids who would have never had the chance otherwise. You've turned your pain into purpose, Ruth." The scholarship fund had been my way of honoring both Bernard's generosity and my own journey, helping young people who showed kindness and dedication without expecting rewards, the opposite of what my daughter had become. As I sat on my terrace that night, watching the stars appear over the Alps, I thought about the price of freedom, how much it had cost me to escape my daughter's web of manipulation and greed, but also what I had gained in return: peace, dignity, self-respect, and the knowledge that I had finally chosen myself after decades of choosing someone who would have watched me die without shedding a genuine tear as long as the check cleared. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts, and I found my neighbor, Hans, standing there with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "I thought perhaps you shouldn't be alone tonight," he said in his careful English. "Anniversaries of difficult decisions need witnessing, no?" Hans was 75, a widower who had lost his wife to cancer 3 years ago, and over the months, we had developed a friendship built on morning coffees and evening walks. Nothing romantic, just 2 people who understood that sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're born into. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping the wine, until Hans said, "My son, he wanted me to sell everything when Maria died, to give him his inheritance early. He said I was too old to need such a big house, that the money would be better in his hands, younger hands, he called them, as if age made my needs less valid." "What did you do?" I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer, since Hans was still in his beautiful home. I told him that my money would outlive me, only if he could outlive his greed. But since greed is immortal and he is not, perhaps he should focus on earning his own fortune instead of waiting for mine. He smiled sadly. He hasn't spoken to me in 2 years, but I sleep peacefully, knowing I won't die, wondering if he's counting my breaths. We clinked glasses in a toast to difficult choices and necessary endings. Two elderly people who had learned that sometimes survival means letting go of those who should love us most, but don't. 3 years have passed since that night, and I'm now 74, still living in Bernard's cottage, though I've made it truly mine with paintings from local artists and furniture that suits my taste rather than someone else's expectations. The scholarship fund has grown beyond my wildest dreams, with other donors contributing once they heard the story behind it, and we've now sent 43 students to medical school, all of them required to perform one act of kindness daily for someone who can never repay them, keeping the cycle of genuine giving alive. Emma wrote to me on her 18th birthday, a long letter filled with apologies and understanding. She's studying psychology, she said, trying to understand how her mother became what she was, trying to ensure she never follows that path. I wrote back, telling her that the sins of the mother need not become the destiny of the daughter, that she has the power to choose who she becomes, and that choice, that daily decision to be better than our worst impulses, is what makes us human. Oliver, now 17, sent me a painting he'd done of the Alps from a photo I'd posted online, with a note that said, "For the grandmother who taught me that love isn't about money, it's about courage." I framed it and hung it in my living room, a reminder that sometimes good can come from even the darkest situations. Sophia remains in prison, her appeals exhausted, her assets seized to pay restitution for her crimes, and according to Marcus, she still maintains she did nothing wrong. That I destroyed her life out of spite, that she was entitled to everything I had simply by virtue of being my daughter. The delusion runs so deep that even her prison therapist has given up trying to break through it, diagnosing her with severe narcissistic personality disorder, with antisocial features, clinical terms for what I simply call a heartbreaking waste of potential. As I finish writing this story, sitting at my desk overlooking the mountains that have become my sanctuary, I want to leave you with this thought. The hardest prison to escape isn't made of bars and walls. It's made of obligation to people who harm us, of misplaced loyalty to those who would see us destroyed, of the belief that blood means we must accept abuse. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do, for ourselves and even for them, is to walk away, to let them face the consequences of their choices without cushioning the fall with our own bodies and souls. My daughter wanted me dead for her birthday, but instead, I gave her something far more valuable, the gift of a mirror that showed her exactly who she had become, and if she didn't like the reflection, well, that was never my responsibility to fix. Where are you watching from today? And have you ever had to walk away from toxic family to save yourself? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe, because sharing these difficult truths helps others know they're not alone in their struggles. Remember, choosing yourself